Okay, in this video we're going to look at how to extract metals, and the extraction of metals depends on the reactivity series. So here is a reactivity series to help us understand this. At the top here we've got our most reactive metals, and they're working their way down to the least reactive metals at the bottom. So if we look in here, I've actually got carbon in here, which isn't a metal, and this is in here as a reference point. All the metals above this are very reactive, and therefore if we're going to extract these metals, we have to use electrolysis to do this. The metals below carbon, but from copper up, in here we can heat these with carbon because carbon is more reactive than these, and these then will be used in the extraction process. And the bottom ones, silver, gold and platinum, these are unreactive, and therefore you find them uncombined, and you don't need to use either of these two methods to get the metal from the ground. To give you an example of what I mean, and what I've done here to help with this is look at some equations, okay? So this first one at the top is iron oxide. And remember that reactivity series, iron oxide is reactive with carbon because carbon is more reactive than iron, so therefore a displacement reaction is going to take place. And that's going to leave the iron on its own, and it will form the carbon dioxide. So the carbon takes away the oxide because carbon is more reactive. In terms of a type of reaction that's going on, we talked about displacement, but this is a second type of reaction because if you look at the iron's gone from iron oxide to iron, and we have to do that we have removed oxygen, and the removal of oxygen is called reduction. So that is a reduction reaction because we are removing oxygen. If we come down to the next one, I've got a second example for you here. If we try to do the same thing with aluminium, then if you go back to that reactivity series, aluminium is more reactive, therefore the carbon cannot separate these two out, cannot displace the aluminium from the aluminium oxide, and this does not generate a reaction, it doesn't work. So how do we get the aluminium from here? Well, we have to use electrolysis, and when we do that, here's our aluminium oxide as a compound, we're going to use electrolysis in order to separate this out. This forms the aluminium, and separate to that we get our oxygen. So we have therefore separated it, and we've got the metal that we need. Something to be aware about with this is that this carbon process for iron, carbon is very cheap, therefore this is a very cheap process. Down here, electrolysis is using electricity, and it uses large amounts of electricity. This is therefore makes it a very expensive process, and that causes the products of that also to be more expensive in that process.